Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we are continuing a series by popular demand looking at the dynamics between Ryan, Blake Lively, and Justin Baldoni through the lens of human design. I'm going to break down why human design is so significant within this. And I know some people are a little bit skeptical, or maybe you don't believe in stuff like this, but it's no different than any other psychology personality tool, which is seen as a lot more acceptable. So we're going to break it down, but this really does show where a lot of the conflict not just started, but brewed over time on the set of It Ends With Us, accumulating in this absolute shit show mess that we are dealing with right now. So we are going to look at a couple key places on Ryan Reynolds. The first place we're really going to look at today is the G Center. And I wanted to start this off with a text message from Blake, who might be Ryan. I have a theory that if you look at the timeline of events on the lawsuit info website, that there's a stark difference in the tone of the text messages after a certain point. And it's my theory, allegedly my theory, that Ryan Reynolds was the one that was actually messaging Justin pretending to be Blake. It's my personal theory. So this was what came up around the time of marketing when Maximum Effort was hired, I guess, to take over the marketing for It Ends With Us. Maximum Effort is the marketing and production company, or I think just marketing for Ryan Reynolds. Now, when we're looking at how a dysfunctional G center, you can call it being in the shadow, you can call it the not self, whatever you want to look at it as, the dysfunctional, incorrect use of your G center, which is identity and direction. This is peer pressure, creating gangs or cults, like being a cult leader, and also being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it just felt so appropriate when I was looking at where do we start with Ryan Reynolds' chart to look at this, because when we talk about gangs and cults, Blake/Ryan's own words, when we look at it here, Blake sent a text message to Justin Baldoni. She says, Maximum Effort is on board to help us as much or as little as you want. Let me know. We have a great group over there who can help supplement and do the work that Sony won't, so we can just hand it, looks like, to them between our collective resources. And Justin Baldoni kind of says, yep, I'm going to push to hire Maximum Effort. Sorry, my eyes are apparently going. I can't read. So Justin Baldoni says, I'm going to push to hire Maximum Effort. And she goes, but all is led by me, Ryan, and Redacted. So we'll make sure to weed out any lame ideas. Oh, I should have done Blake Lively's voice. Damn it. Completely missed out on doing Blake Lively's voice. Let you guys down. Then she says, they don't need to hire. And Justin Baldoni says, part of why I don't want to die on this hill. And Blake Lively says, it's me and Ryan and Redacted. We work for free for the family. It's mafia style on this. So right away, we're looking at this issue of creating almost a gang or a cult. She calls it the mafia. So I wanted to start with that first, because I think so much of what we see from Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively feeds into, and I think they're both involved. I think Ryan and Blake are both involved. I'm open to being proven wrong at one point. I don't think she was necessarily forced into anything. From what I've seen, believe that Blake Lively has a lot of big ideas, that she's really driven, but also battles with kind of like laziness and not wanting to do the work. Personally, she talks about that. She needs authorship, but of other people's projects, because she said she can't just take a blank page and turn it into something. She needs authorship over other people's shit. So, to me, that just screams someone that, yeah, I want to be successful. I want to be seen as successful, but I don't want to do the work. Now, I want to lean into this before we go too deep into it. The concept of leveraging human design and BG5. So BG5 is the business application of the human design system. But again, I like to look at this more as strengths-based coaching or the career and business direction, because human design itself is spiritual awakening, and not everyone wants to go on a spiritual awakening journey. A lot of my clients do, but not everyone does. So this gives us more of a practical application of looking at your strengths, your shadows, and how you can leverage your strengths in your life, in your relationships. Now, what BG5 says is there's no material direction for you except what is absolutely correct for you. One of the spiritual concepts that I've always held in the back of my mind is do without doing and everything gets done. And I can't remember who that's originally attributed to. Ra Uru Hu, the creator of human design, used to say that, but do without doing and everything gets done. And what he meant, or what the concept behind this is, it's not do nothing. It's not sit on your ass and expect the universe to bestow you with millions of dollars and a thriving YouTube channel and a thriving business. It's not saying that. It's saying don't do anything outside your own nature. The problem is, as adults, we've spent our entire lives trying to shore up our weaknesses. I was just saying on Instagram stories today that I love this community so much because my entire life I've been trying to shore up the polarity within myself of, yeah, I'm kind of unhinged at times. I grew up in Windsor and Detroit. For those that know on, Canada and the US, I grew up in Windsor, Detroit. There is like a level of unhinged you cannot take out of someone that grew up there. And so there is this like unhinged, loud, I also call it the chestnut thoroughbred mare side of myself. But there's also like this deeply spiritual, calm, present, release the outcome and be present with the now side of self. And I've spent my entire life, I don't know about you, but I've spent my entire life trying to shore up those two sides and pick a side. Because I've always been told that if you're on one side, the other side's wrong. And if you're on this side, then the other side's wrong. You can't be logical, but also believe in spirituality. You can't be spiritual, but also like celebrity gossip and be a little unhinged at times. You've got to pick a side. And what these tools do is show you that what's right for you is what's right for you. It's who you be. What is correct for you is doing nothing outside your own nature. And then we do that, you get precisely what you need. Now, makes me want to break out into the Rolling Stones song that you might not always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you may just find you get what you need. Because this doesn't mean, and we broke this down with Justin Baldoni's chart too, doesn't mean that you get what your mind thinks it should look like or what you want, but you're always going to get what you need. And it's not from doing nothing. It's from doing the right things. Research has found, and this is from psychology, that over 90% of people lack true self-awareness and only 10% of people actually have strong self-awareness. So this is why this is so critical, because often we think we're like, yeah, this is what I'm really great at. But what you're going to see is what Ryan probably thinks he's really great at is actually shadow. What Blake thinks she's really great at is actually a shadow. And then I had the video with Justin Baldoni that shows us where he was very wise and open to the learning and wisdom he's gained from this entire experience. He was self-aware to his shadow and how he got trapped in his shadow. And positive psychology says we're blind to what we do best. Therefore, these systems help us uncover our strengths and be aware of our distractions. Our distractions can also be, consider our openness in human design, but our distractions are what pull us off track, what we think we need to be accepted or to be successful. And one of my favorite quotes that's always attributed to Carl Jung, it's not the exact quote. The quote that's been made more digestible for everyone is not the exact quote, but this is in the same vein. Until you make the unconscious conscious, you'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. And we see this, right? You might have someone like Blake Lively that's blaming everyone else. It's everyone else's problem that they think I'm a bully, or it's not my fault that I try to cancel this guy on the set like he was a creep, or always blaming someone else, not able to take responsibility for our own lives. And then we call it fate. I'm not meant to be successful. I'm not meant to be this. It's not who I am. I'll die on the hill that I am like this or I am like that, even though that hill you're about to die on, you're not even happy there, but you're just whatever, no matter what I do, it won't change. Well, you got to make the unconscious conscious. And when you make the unconscious conscious, which is what these systems do, you can actually change it. But people like Blake and Ryan that aren't willing to look at the unconscious patterns that are currently driving their life, they're not going to change. And therefore, their world's never going to be different. And the hope is that karma eventually catches up with you. But this is the work that I do with a lot of my clients. I have an offer called The Shadows, and it's a minimum 3-month mentorship space, one-on-one space. And we go deep into the shadow patterns that are driving your life so we can unwind that and set you up for success in a way that's true to you. Doesn't mean you don't have to be, you have to just move out to the middle of nowhere and not have a business or not be successful. It's what does it mean to be true to you? When we look at strengths as well, it is important for us. Now, strength psychology is showing when you focus on your strengths, you get into alignment with your authentic self, which is essentially what BG5 is. So you perform better, your relationships improve, you're happy because you're engaging in activities that you enjoy and you're good at. And it's just based on the simple notion that your talent, you as a person, your talents do more than make you unique. Your greatest talents, the way in which you most naturally think, feel, behave, write, sing, act, show up, however you want to bring that out into the world, represent your innate power and potential. And we tap into that source of wisdom and power, we're more efficient, we act with more confidence, we have a direction in life that feels good for us, and we're more productive in a way that doesn't burn us out. Because most of us are spinning our wheels doing things that we don't actually enjoy and we're getting burned out or meeting resistance like Blake and Ryan. So when we're looking at BG5, I include it under the same umbrella as actual psychology tests, including the Gallup Strengths Test and the VIA Character Strengths Test. And those are positive psychology tools to help you learn more about your strengths. I can actually drop the links in the show notes for you guys if you're curious and you want to go check it out and see what it says. You'll find it's remarkably similar to the strengths that your human design says you have. All right. So let's start diving into Ryan. I wanted to set the stage because a lot of the community here is loving human design, is spiritually inclined, especially those that are diving into Justin Baldoni's world because he's spiritually inclined and also a little bit hesitant. And I get it. I get it. Come in with an open mind because all it's saying is do what you do best. Leverage your strengths. And you would think that is the easiest concept to sit with and to do. But I've worked with thousands of people in the psychology field, because I was a counselor, and in the branding field, personal development space. Most people aren't genuinely aware of what they do best, or there's stories around it of like, it gets to be that easy. Like I just get to be me. I just get to be who I am. Yeah. And there's all these stories on how people's actual strengths are weaknesses and how they have to shore up their actual weaknesses to make those their strengths because we're always comparing ourselves. All right, let's dive in. I think the first thing we need to understand about Ryan Reynolds is his defined sacral. You have 3 defined sacrals. That's a lot of energy of wanting to build something their way. You have Justin Baldoni, whose sacral is all about knowing what's worth fighting for. You have Blake Lively's, who is literally all about Blake Lively and what she wants. And you have Ryan Reynolds, who is all about this instinctual power, like this innate power he has to protect his quote unquote tribe. I think for Ryan, he sees it as probably Ryan, if I'm being honest. I do think he would ditch Blake, or there's actually blind items coming out now that they're in talks for a divorce. Take it for what you will. There are those blind items coming out, but I do believe he would put Ryan first. I think he would, and his brand. Probably not till after a trial, to be honest, but I'm not a lawyer, but I imagine there's some kind of spousal privilege for this. But when we look at that sacral, you have 3 beings that are meant to follow their gut instinct. That gut instinct of this is what I want to build, and this is how I'm supposed to build it, and how I want to build it. And obviously there was conflict. We saw that conflict of how Justin and Blake really clanked their heads together, which, I mean, really at the end of the day, she had no business doing that in the first place. It wasn't her movie to do that. But watch that video. I can put those links in the show notes as well. But when we're looking at the unhealthy state, because just because something's colored in, so anything that's colored in your human design is an innate strength. It means it's a consistent strength within you. Doesn't mean you're using it correctly though. When we look at the unhealthy use of the sacral, it's filled with frustration. And Ryan's spoken about this before. There's lots of interviews with Ryan talking about how, he has anxiety and like these anger issues and all of this. You can very easily find them. Other ways it's unhealthy, or when it's in an unhealthy state, it's expressed initiating rather than responding, leading to resistance with others. We saw this on the set of Deadpool. He just took over the franchise, caused problems with that. And then we see that with next, we have initiating rather than responding, leading to resistance with others. Watch my Trojan horse theory. I have this whole theory around this Trojan horse on how they take over movie sets. And we saw this with Deadpool. Was it the original director? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I talk about in those series had said like it wasn't worth fighting with him over everything. So he just like, whatever, just left it. And I think he was directly involved with Blake on taking over It Ends With Us. Unhealthy state, they do not enjoy their work. They're utilizing the power of the sacral in a way that's degenerative and destructive to everyone around them. And they deplete their energy doing things that they don't enjoy or they're not good at, which I think, I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. I'm thinking about in real time. Does he enjoy what he does? I don't know. Does he enjoy being an actor? I genuinely don't know. That is a great question. But typically, if you have a defined sacral and it's being used in an unhealthy way, you're doing things you don't enjoy. So what ends up happening is you become the great quitter. And I think that's something that's very obvious with Blake Lively, because Blake Lively has a defined sacral. And you look at this string of things she's put together. I think she had that B for Effort or something production company. She's talked about needing authorship, but not being willing to put it on her like a page for herself. She needs something that's already there and to fill in the gaps. I think she described herself as like going through everything and finding the gaps or something. She's oh God. Anyway, we won't go there. She does things and quits ultimately. She's depleting her energy doing things that she doesn't enjoy, and then she's quitting. Or she's forcing herself. She's initiating, Blake Lively too, and taking over shit that's never hers to take over in the first place or to have an opinion on in the first place. Now, when we look at, I just want to set the stage for that because I think that's a big piece of Ryan Reynolds is understanding that this constant being filled with frustration, initiating, inserting yourself in places that you weren't invited to insert yourself into, forcing your ideas on people, forcing your direction on people, forcing your leadership on people. The theme, right? That's what we've seen with Ryan. Now, we're going to come back, however, to the G center because I do think this is a major player in the dynamics between Ryan and Justin. We're going to look at another piece, but I'm going to pull up my software for that after. Now, the G center is this yellow diamond in the middle of the body graph, and that's all about identity and direction. So if it's consistent, you're going to have this you're going to be very comfortable. So this colored in natural state is very comfortable with who you are. There's a lot of self-love there. I do not believe that someone that can be as angry and hurtful as Ryan can have self-love. I really don't believe it. Have a sense of your own correct mission in life, the capacity to comfort people who are concerned about the direction of the business, company, or even humanity. So that when we look at Ryan, there's this love of others, this taking care of others. Yeah, I know. In the healthy state, right? Obviously not using it in a healthy way. Super comfortable with your identity. And through being really comfortable with your identity, you're helping others as well in life. But the unhealthy state of your G center when it's colored in is you experience a sense of loss in your life that maybe you've given up on yourself or you don't really know where to go. It's very easy to find interviews with Ryan Reynolds where he talks about that. You try to direct or lead others without being asked, without being invited. You try to force your identity, your direction, your leadership, and the unhealthy expression on other people. It's different if Justin had come to him and Blake and said, hey, I really respect you guys, and I would love your input on this. Obviously, that's not what happened. He was strong-armed, eventually just gave in. He didn't invite them. Had he invited them, then that would have been correct if Ryan wanted to insert himself in it. But he didn't. They initiated. Remember from the last slide, initiated. How? His own direction, what Ryan saw for the movie on Justin. You also have the potential with an unhealthy defined G center to reject your own direction and succumb to the expectations imposed on you by others. I don't think that's an expression that Ryan really struggles with. Just because you're in an unhealthy state doesn't mean every aspect of it is going to show up for you. Everyone's going to have their unique expression of it. Now, when we're looking at Justin in terms of this, so you can see on Justin that yellow diamond in the middle is white. So that means it's open. It's where you take in life, you gain wisdom. In the shadow, there's role confusion. So you have this confusion about your role because when we look at it from the idea of you kind of take in energy from around you, anyone that I've worked with that has this white and is kind of, at a point in their life where they're asking that question of, who am I? What do I actually want to do? One of the things that we uncover when this is white is they go, well, when I'm with this group of friends, I'm like this. And when I'm with that group of friends, I'm like that. And then when I'm with this group of friends, I'm like this. And they go, I have this confusion on who I am because who am I? I'm someone different depending on who I'm around. That's what they're talking about in the shadow with role confusion. I see this a lot with entrepreneurs or personal brands, YouTubers, etc. online when I'm working with them and they're really struggling to find their voice. And I don't mean from a place of pivoting or from testing things out. Everyone needs to test things out, but from like a true role confusion place. Very different energy, testing things out, testing a direction out, testing your role out intentionally, and taking in other people's identities and therefore being like, I don't know who I am. Who am I? Because I watch this person's channel and that's how I want to be. And then I watch this person's channel and that's how I want to be. Also in the shadow for Justin, always looking for the purpose and direction of your life. And this is where I would say for someone like Justin, always, for example, if I was working with him, always bringing him back to, it's not that spirituality is bad. It's not that self-development's bad. It's not that seeking a higher purpose in your life is bad, but is it from the shadow? Is it because you never feel like you're enough? Is it because you always feel, unloved or like you don't fit in? So you're searching for a fixed identity so that you do fit in. It's a very different energy. It's a different energy to be guided into a certain self-development arena or spirituality from that inner authority versus, I need to shore up my weaknesses. I need to fit in somewhere. So to fit in somewhere, I'm going to be someone I'm not. I'm going to try and fix myself as if you're lacking. Very different energy. You might feel adrift and lost, always seeking and searching. You don't know who or what to be. And I think this is a huge piece of Justin's journey with It Ends With Us, where we watched the interview with Rainn Wilson and he goes, I realized everything I was chasing isn't even what I wanted. I had everything I needed. So he's really coming into this wisdom of his defined G center as well. And you desperately need someone to show you that direction, where to go, or essentially who you are, because it's that identity. And he had admitted that in the Rainn Wilson interview. He said, I was all meshed in it, like who I was, the roles I was taking on, wanting to be seen as good enough or enough, have a seat at the table, essentially. It was all enmeshed together. And I've uncovered that through this journey that I had everything I needed within. Now, the wisdom for Justin of this undefined G center is, you're very sensitive to your environment. So you don't, if you don't like the location, you move. If I always say for undefined G centers, if this is white on you, if you're in the wrong place, it's going to feel like the wrong people, because no matter what, location is going to be number one for you. So if it feels like where you are, you're like, I just can't. The people can't. Even if it's online, can't. Look at that location, because it might be the location that's wrong. You can accept that your identity is not fixed, that varies from day to day and depending on who you're with, without getting attached to those other identities, without making someone else's identity your own. You can recognize what's truly of value. You can be a mirror, helping others find their direction in love, which I think really Justin had so much potential. Had Blake and Ryan not been assholes, had they genuinely been open to a friendship with Justin Baldoni, both Blake and Ryan have a defined G center. He could have been someone that really had an opportunity to be a mirror of helping them find their direction and maybe even that self-love. But they saw that mirror. Mark my words, Blake and Ryan saw that mirror and it freaked them out. And then they wanted to blame him. And I think this is where the G center comes in, because he was reflecting back something to them they didn't want to face, a wisdom around direction and identity that they didn't want to face. And so they took it out on him. They retaliated against him. Now let's dive a little bit into the channel that he has in his G center coming up into his throat. So we can see the 7 to 31. It's a strength. Now, before you freak out my comments, one of the things Rottruhu used to say is, for example, this one, the strength of leadership or not. So what did he mean by that? Well, you could be a great leader. You could be a shit leader. You could be a leader that leads others through example, or you can be a leader that forces and pushes. The choice is yours. And so we can see that just because you have the strength of leadership does not mean that you are a good leader or that you're a leader people actually want to be around. You can kind of be like a dictator. His is the anarchist, the rejection of any institutionalized order. And I think he even uses that as a shadow, because when you look at the anarchist line 3, it's not inherently bad. The anarchist is not inherently bad. It's very individual, right? So it says the constant need for change, no matter what the prevailing conditions, the drive of the self to express many roles. So you're not going to be held down by what an institutionalized order has told you to be, right? You're going to kind of push. You're going to be the one at the front. It's also the 31 on the other side. It's called the Gandhi gate, like that type of leadership. Doesn't mean he's going to be the next Gandhi. Don't misplace my words or misrepresent my words. But it's this idea of like, it's such a strong leadership channel. But to really be a strong leadership, you got to kind of go against the grain. So anarchist isn't inherently bad. But when we have someone like him that's using this energy incorrectly, what we've seen by the past few slides, he's forcing his leadership on others. He's forcing his direction and identity on others. He's forcing what he wants on others. And you have someone like Justin who's just like, at the end of the day, absorbing that, because wherever you are white in your human design and someone else is colored in, you're taking in that energy. And I imagine for someone like Justin, who's not just highly spiritual and attuned, probably an empath, but also ADHD, that's a lot to take on, the energy of Blake and Ryan. So when we look at the strength of leadership, it's the strength 7 to 31. You have the potential to lead those around you safely into the future or not. I want to underline that, right? Because just because you have the potential doesn't mean you're using it properly, and it can be a dangerous energy. This strength of leadership can be very dangerous when used incorrectly. One of the examples that Ra Rahu gave, and I don't know if he has the full channel or not, or just 31, but was Hitler. A horrible name to even bring up, and it makes me sick to even bring up that name, but he used that as an example. He does have a 31. I don't know if he has the full channel, but the idea is you're not necessarily a good leader. You don't necessarily have the good of everyone forefront of your mind. And his chart is about this individuality we're going to see in a couple slides. I really think this is a strength that he, quote unquote, strength that he is using very wrong. And he's turned into this mafia type leader of either you're with me or you're not. And if you're not with me, then I'm taking you out. And that's not leadership, especially not for the good of the collective, because 7 to 31 is going to be a collective channel. And sure as shit isn't leadership to lead those around you safely into the future. Not even close. So it's a logical type of leadership based on tested and established patterns that can be followed with certainty. To lead, you must first earn trust. I don't think Ryan cares, to be quite honest. I don't think Ryan cares if people trust him or not, if people like him or not. He's like, I am taking this over. I'm doing what's best for me. Get out of my way, which is the wrong type of leadership. But I do think that the strength of leadership has also allowed him to be as successful as he is, because people are inherently going to see your strengths. So people likely, hate him, love him. I don't think many people in this community love him, but he's been very successful in the realm of business. And I do think that this, in many ways, has allowed him to do that, but not from a exalted place, not from an aligned place, not from an integrity sort of leadership. And he doesn't earn trust. He just takes what he wants. You must be recognized as someone who grasps present patterns, understands trends, and are in touch with the needs of the people. Yeah. Your voice carries a quality of influence, but you must be invited by the majority to lead. Again, we're looking at this over and over again with Ryan's chart. It's like when you are owning your power, when you are owning your strengths, when you are just in flow theory is part of positive psychology, you're naturally recognized for what you're good at. He doesn't care. He will take it. He will take the movie. He will take what he wants. He will squash those that get in his way. He uses these in dysfunctional ways. Your voice carries, or sorry, you have the ability to lead with influence behind the throne, and you're here to point the way forward, not to do it yourself. This is key to your success, maintaining a sense of well-being. So it's, I see the vision, and then you hire people to implement it. But I think this is one of the biggest problems. I mean, he's here to guide and order society. Yeah. We're going to explain more as we go how incorrect his energy is being used. But if we go back on these slides, the pieces start to come together, I imagine, right? Filled with frustration, initiating, forcing his way on people, then all that power destructive to himself and all of those around him, depleting the energy within himself and within those around him. And then over here, expecting others to go where you are going and getting pissed when they don't. So if we start to look at this, so we have this strength of leadership. It's supposed to be safely leading us all into the future. What my theory is, and there's a lot of pieces to a chart. We're looking at a very small piece. And I do have some spaces left for foundation calls if you want to go into your own chart. So it's a very small piece. So it's nuanced. This isn't going to give the entire picture of what's going on. But this is based on this, what we've covered so far, my theory. Because Rahu used to always say, and I'm trained by the official schools, that we know what we're meant to be doing essentially. So for example, he will know unconsciously that he's meant to be leading, that he's meant to see the patterns, that he's meant to understand trends, that he's meant to move people into the future. He's meant to be this example of leadership. So we unconsciously know, but the problem becomes, and like he unconsciously knows he's meant to be productive, which is a generator builder thing. He unconsciously knows he's meant to be building something and creating something. But the problem becomes when you're in the shadow, you're not doing it in an aligned way. You're not doing it from integrity. You're forcing, you're pushing, you're burning yourself out and destroying everyone in the process. So part of the deconditioning process with clients is looking at like, what is the tangled rat's nest of where you're forcing, where you're pushing, where you're trying to be seen for these patterns. And then you're getting pissed, filled with frustration that other people aren't seeing that you see the patterns and you see the trends and you see the direction, the best direction for the movie, for example. So now you're meant to follow me as we flip back and forward. He knows subconsciously, right? Not consciously, the body. Well, they're meant to be seeing me for someone that understands the trends in, say, the movie industry, that is in touch with the needs of what's going to sell. People are meant to be seeing me as that guy. They're meant to be seeing me as the guy that knows what to do for this, that knows the patterns. And then he's getting frustrated because people aren't seeing. So instead of taking a step back, he's forcing his way, initiating. And they're forcing his way. He's expecting others to go, unhealthy state of the G center, expecting others to go where he wants to go and getting more pissed when they don't. And so because of this piece, because he knows unconsciously, hey, I'm meant to be the guy that's meant to be leading the movie, that's meant to see the patterns, that understands the trends in the industry and is in touch with the needs of the people. Needs of the people can also be what to sell people. Well, you need to listen to me. So I'm going to get pissed off if you don't. And if you don't listen, here's this unhealthy state of the G center. I'm going to direct and lead you, whether you want me to or not. How you like them apples? Is that still saying? I don't know if that's still saying. Anyway. So let me know in the comments. Can you see how it really builds on itself and the shadow builds on itself? And then you get this feedback loop. Because the more you force, the more people you don't earn trust. So you have to force more for people to, well, they're not going to trust me. They're not going to see my pattern. So I'm going to take it, which leads to more frustration, more having to initiate, which leads to more having to direct and lead and force others because you're telling them where to go now, which leads to more lack of trust. And then you get in this feedback loop. And the only person that can stop this feedback loop is Ryan Reynolds. And it's interesting because you watch some of his interviews and he seems so aware of these patterns he has. And he doesn't seem to be wanting to address them. He doesn't seem to be wanting to do anything about them. He talks about having gone to anger management like as a teenager. All right, well, what have you been doing as an adult? That's my question. And we're going to go a little bit off script and look at his splenic center a little bit, because when I have a client like this, so if I was working with him in the shadows, which I'd be open to it, Ryan, shoot me an email, support@ashleybriannaeve.com. When we're looking at this, we're going, well, what is the root? Because to be aware of this is one thing, right? Okay, great, thanks. I'm a dick. I want people to see that I'm good at something. I want people to see that I should be leading, and I'm impatient. I don't wait to be invited to share my thoughts, so I just take it. Thanks. Perfect. Well, there we want to look at, okay, well, what's the nuance there? Why is it showing up like this for you? And for Ryan, I believe it's rooted in fear of the future. And he's talked about his anxiety. I do wonder, as much as I cringe at doing like a diagnosis of someone I don't know, especially since I'm not a psychiatrist, I do wonder if he's undiagnosed ADHD. I've wondered this since earlier this year, and looking back more at Ryan, and he talks a lot about anxiety. He talks a lot about fears, and I don't know, how he speaks reminds me of where I was at before my adult ADHD diagnosis, where I was living from anxiety. I was being impulsive, doing things, from seeking dopamine and living with a lot of regret. Like, I remember thinking, I don't want to live like this anymore, because I do things impulsively. And then afterwards, I'm like, shit, should have thought about that. Right. And I work with ADHDers, a lot of ADHDers. I've held a workshop on ADHD in the past, and I have some videos on the channel in regards to human design and ADHD. So if you are ADHD or you suspect you are, check out the playlist. I have an actual playlist on ADHD and human design. I do wonder if he's undiagnosed. And Ryan, if you are, or you've ever suspected it, let me tell you, getting that diagnosis will actually change your life. But anyway, I do think fear of the future is what drives that behavior and the anxiety as a result of that. So when we look at awareness centers, there's always going to be an aspect of anxiety there. Whether it's defined or undefined is how you experience that anxiety, like that fear. It's going to be a nervousness, a fear, right? Nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. I want you to sit with that again. Pay attention to what I just said. If you're cooking or cleaning or chasing the kids around, pause for a second. Nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. Nothing. Even the word stress. So my background's in psychology. You look at the word stress, you ask 10 people have different definitions of what stress is. You ask 10 different people on anything, they're going to have different associations with the word. One of the things I was told recently is I shouldn't have red in my branding because it's aggressive. Well, no, it's also associated with love and passion and fierceness and leadership. So one person's going to see red and feel threatened. The other person's going to see red and be like, oh my gosh, boldness and leadership. So nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. Nothing. So when we look at fear and anxiety, it's not bad nor good. It's how you define it. And you can redefine that at any point in time. So when we look at the awareness center, so the splenic center is going to be your instinctual fears. It's going to hold all instinctual. So we see here, fear of inadequacy is 48, which he also has gate 48. 57 is future. 44 is the past. 50 is responsibility. He also has 50. Fear of responsibility. 32 is failure. 28 is death. And 18 is fear of authority. He also has 18. So if it's defined, you're going to have a very fixed way of experiencing that fear. If it's undefined, you're going to have an inconsistent way. So for example, if you have 57 and it's white and you come around Ryan, right? So you're in Ryan's energy and you're talking to Ryan and he's talking about the future. It's like, oh, the economy, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen with this lawsuit and da, da, da. Well, now you're paranoid and you're fearful of the economy and you're like, what the hell? 5 minutes ago, before I met this dude, I wasn't afraid of the economy or fearful of what's going to happen. I wasn't fearful for the future. Why am I all of a sudden fearful of the future? You're picking up and amplifying his fears. So whether your center is defined or not, you're still experiencing them. The ajna, so it'll be green on you, the second center from the top. It's going to be green on you if it's defined. Those are going to be those mental anxieties and fears. And then the solar plexus is currently a motor, currently in evolution to be a awareness center in 2027 and beyond. It's emotional fears. But I believe this is one of the places that really gets Ryan. 48 inadequacy, 57 the future. We could also maybe say 50 responsibility. I don't know. But when we're looking at this energy, that I believe that fear of inadequacy in the future is what really drives this dysfunctional energy. Like, people need to see that I'm the best. They need to see that I see the patterns. They need to. And so he just like inserts himself. I know best type energy. If I was to describe Ryan Reynolds in the shadow, it's I know best. Therefore, because you don't trust me, because I'm not actually aligned and I'm forcing myself on you, because you don't trust me, I'm just going to force my direction on you. That's Ryan. So the possibility here with 57 is intuitive clarity. Now that's a possibility or not. Intuitive clarity or not. There's awareness to struggle for knowing or not. And when we're looking at the 57 itself, so that's this little line here, it's connected to the sacral through 34. It's the intuitive insight provides clarity to penetrate to the core of what is taking place around you. But here's the thing. You might have that intuitive clarity of what's taking place around you. Doesn't mean you're going to react in a reasonable way. So some of the theories going around are, maybe Ryan had an intuitive clarity that something was off with Blake and Justin. Something was off. So he asked for the dailies. Is that a reasonable way to go about it? No. Is then destroying a man's life a reasonable way to go about it? No. But there is, right? So again, let me know if you in the comments if you see the pattern of what I'm talking about. You have that inherent knowing and connection to our energy, to our strengths of how we're wired essentially. But it doesn't mean you go about it right. So I think this fear of 57, fear of the future, my theory is he's the one that wanted the dailies, but it was this 57, but he didn't go about it right. So he's like, fine, you're ruining my future potentially, fear of the future. We're going to take your film. We're going to ruin your future. It's deeply acoustic of the right ear of hearing and allegedly, deeply acoustic of the right ear, hearing in the now, very sensitive to tone and picks up on the truth or lies. So again, might have picked up, maybe. Blake came home a little too excited after a day of shooting. Or maybe, I think, didn't Justin go to their penthouse or something to work out a scene? Maybe she told him something. She said something. He was like, something ain't right here. How about those dailies? How about you give me your phone? I'll text him back, right? Doesn't mean it was used in a right way, but you can start to see how that natural awareness is there. And then the dysfunction of how he's operating is causing a lot of problems. You may sometimes appear deaf to others. No doubt of that. I'm sure Justin felt like that. I'm sure Justin felt like you and Blake were deaf to him and just bulldozing him. It's rooted in our deepest of all fears, your fear of survival, fear of tomorrow. And then the strength itself is life entices you to use your intuitive awareness to empower your own well-being. It's very individual. My well-being first. And speak your truth and intuitive insights in the moment. I imagine Ryan says a lot of things he later regrets using this energy because it's spontaneity. And that's where I do think there's also potentially maybe some ADHD things going on, which is not an excuse. I have ADHD. And I don't believe in using ADHD as an excuse. That's why I got help for it and why I got a diagnosis for it. So that's like, I am not letting this hold me back. Right? So this is the ability to think and speak on your feet without inner censoring. Hands up in the comments. Who thinks Ryan Reynolds thinks and speaks without inner censoring and without thinking before he speaks. Let me know. I think there's gonna be a lot of hands in the comments. You often find that your spontaneous words and instincts get to the core of a situation quickly without you having to think about it. Your alertness to the receptivity or not of others allows you to share your intuition with them as true knowing and reduces misunderstanding and resistance. This is another place of that misunderstanding, another place of resistance, because your alertness to receptivity. I don't think Ryan gives a shit based on everything we've seen so far. I don't think he cares if you're receptive to him or not. I don't think he cares if you see his ideas and direction and identity and where he thinks the market's going and how he can market. I don't think he gives a shit. And I don't say, at the end of the day, I don't see that with shade. I would tell him to his face if I was on a consulting call with him about human design. That's why I'm not good for everyone to work with everyone. Anyone that needs and this is no shade either, like kid gloves or hand holding, I am not good because I will just call it out to your face on where you're holding yourself back or where you're in the shadow. You're alert, bold, like red. The alertness to receptivity or not of others allows you to share your intuition. Oh, we already read that. This type of spontaneity requires overcoming a fear of the unknown by learning to listen to, act on, and trust your intuitive impulses completely. What would be important for Ryan, however, is to pause. Is this reasonable? Is this okay? Is this the right use of my energy? He has what's called a split definition. So if we look at his chart, you have the sacral and the splenic center that are connected. And then there's nothing that connects the throat and the G center. Typically with a simple split like this, you turn that in and you see yourself being as at fault. I genuinely think Ryan might have that fear. Maybe if you actually got to the core, he'd be like, yeah, I'm genuinely I blame myself. That's why I push. That's why it needs to be perfect. That's why I try and control everything. That's why I have anxiety. But in his conscious mind, right? That's the unconscious. That's what's likely going on below the surface. The conscious mind, I bet he's like, no, it's everyone else's problem. It's everyone else's fault. I wouldn't doubt it. And that's stuff to work on. Those are shadows to work on. That doesn't mean you have to be like that forever. What this is about, no matter if you're Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, John Smith on the corner, Keanu Reeves, love Keanu, anyone. Where are my shadow patterns holding me back? It's about taking radical self-responsibility for our shadow patterns and how it's negatively impacting our life, negatively impacting our goals, and negatively impacting those around us. And then you can look at your shadow patterns and be like, I don't give a shit. I don't care that I'm not getting ahead and I'm not accomplishing my goals because of them. I don't care that it's destroying my relationships. I don't care that it means, I don't have the wealth or the career or the friend group that I want. Whatever. I'll stay doing it. And then that's your personal power to do it. But to me, and this is the fear of a lot of people, this is why a lot of people don't want to do the shadow work. Because when you get faced with what is actually holding you back, it's your responsibility to do something about it. And up until that point, if you don't know, or if you're like, that's not me, I don't know what you're talking about, you can be like, not my problem. It's just how I am. Just how I was wired. Not my problem. Nothing I can do to fix it, which is a victim mentality, which is funny because when I was in psychology, we used to call it a victim mindset, but now it's a fixed mindset. I don't know if you get cancel cultured if you call it a victim mindset these days, probably. It's don't blame anyone. It's fixed mindset. But fixed mindset, victim mindset, growth mindset says, okay, I see that. And there's a disconnect between my goals, who I say I want to be, how I want to be taken by others, what I want to accomplish, and who I am currently being. And I'm going to close that gap. And I'm going to do the shitty, dirty work of closing that gap. So I'm going to look at one other quick place. I didn't put it on slide, so I'm going to pull up my software for human design before we flip over to his gene keys. So this depth is not included on a foundation call. It's something I go into in the shadows. So a mentorship space of deconditioning. However, I think it's really significant when we look at the interaction of Ryan, Blake, and Justin. I've talked about this in a video a long time ago, but I know there's a lot of new people to my world. Welcome. And now you'll have it here too. So when we're looking at human design, There's advanced principles. So I'm at the International Human Design School for the differentiation degree program, which is 2.5 years. And I took some time off. Life got crazy. All right. So I am in the differentiation degree college, and it's about as high up learning you can get at the International Human Design School. And it looks at the rave psychology and the primary health system. And one thing we're going to look at here is called perspective. The perspective, very simply, you're meant to have on the world, right? How you're meant to see things. And we all have different ways of seeing things. The interesting thing is if we look at Ryan Reynolds, it's wanting. So the way you're meant to see the world is based off what you want. Let's look at Blake Lively. Advanced. Scroll down. Perspective. Wanting. What she wants. And you look at Justin Baldoni. Advanced. Scroll on down. Perspective. Wanting. Based on what he wants. So I think this was another layer of complexity. Again, it's not saying like, oh, totally excuse Blake and Ryan, guys. Like, it's not their fault. No, I just said how it is their fault because you have to take radical self-responsibility for your shadows. And if you don't, that's your own problem. Pull your big girl panties up, pull your big boy briefs up, and take responsibility for your shadows so you're not barfing your shadows on everyone around you. Other people don't need to deal with that shit. Deal with it in my DMs all the time. So, perspective of wanting, you have 3 people that like this. I know fundamentally I am meant to do what I want, get what I want, build what I want. And then you have Blake and Ryan who are in the shadows. Blake's out here, defined ego everywhere, needs to be in control, competition, being first. You have Ryan Reynolds who's meant to be the leader, forcing what they want on Justin. And Justin Baldoni's chart as well is, if we look at here, this very important channel is channel of struggle, knowing what is worth fighting for. So it's very likely at some point Justin went, this is how I want the movie to go. This was my vision. This is what I want. But this isn't worth it anymore. It's not worth struggling for. It's not worth fighting for. You want it. And we saw that in the text message, right? That I read you guys about the mafia. He's like, this is why I'm not going to die on this hill. He knew. And that's also a sense of personal power. And I don't think he gave up in that moment. I think he realized for his health and his probably sanity and for his own life, this isn't worth struggling for anymore, which is really sad as well. But I just wanted to show that quickly. We're going to flip over to Ryan Reynolds, Gene Keys. I love how you guys say it. Reminds me of like Scooby-Doo, whenever you say that. So Gene, like Gene DNA, Keys, Gene space Keys. We'll flip over to that next. All right. With Gene Keys, it's built off of the human design system. So Richard Rudd was involved in human design. He ran the UK branch of the human design system, and he is a mystic. He is a spiritual leader. Richard Rudd is fantastic. He's very different than Ra Ruhu. I love them both and appreciate them both for very different reasons. Richard Rudd really taps into that, like that leaned back aspect of me and the quieter and go with the flow aspect of me. And Ra Ruhu really taps into, he'd show up and be like, I don't even want to be here. I have no desire to be here. He was just like, no bullshit, said it like it was, love me or hate me, take me as I am. Like, I don't give a shit. Ra Ruhu used to always say, I'm not your guru. Like, go out and experiment with it for yourself, which is so true. So anyway, 2 very different types of leaders, but Gene Keys was essentially built off the back of human design. Richard Rudd got permission from Ra Ruhu to leverage the human design system and essentially grow it into a new direction. So life work is going to be this circle at the top. So this is your hologenetic profile and Gene Keys. I'm putting the link in the notes. I am a Gene Keys guide, so it is an affiliate link. And so if you are purchasing courses or anything there, you're also supporting me in the Farm Animal Sanctuary. So thank you for that. And I do have Gene Keys sessions as well. If you ever wanted to book a Gene Keys sessions to make sense of all of this. I work with a lot of Gene Keys guides because, it's really hard to see your own shadows at times and your own patterns. But anyway, up here is your life's work at the very top. Now you're going to sit down. Sit down for this, guys. Are you sitting? Make sure you're sitting because you just make sure the jaw, like, you don't have to clench, but we don't need TMJ issues here. But just prepare yourself because you might fall over. His life's work is 50. He has an enormous power. His chart is, even in human design, all about power. He's the archetype of power and potential in life. I said this about Blake too. Your gift is to bring harmony into any group that you are in, whether that be your family, a business, or your whole entourage. Didn't an exec or something that was at the meeting where Ryan ripped into Justin say he had never heard someone yelled at like that before? I feel like Ryan's not bringing harmony to a group. Just a wild guess. The key is for you to work with others. But what we see, the shadow is dictating to others, forcing others, because it is through you that others can find a unified bond. Yeah, I'm not even shitting you guys. This kind of work, whether official or hidden, has taken our world into a new future where humankind will one day realize its inherent oneness. Maybe that scares Ryan, genuinely. Like this idea of harmony and oneness, because it's a reflection, again, that mirror of where he's not living in alignment, allegedly. You will find that people immediately trust you. They're supposed to. Remember, if he's aligned, they're supposed to immediately trust him and see him as a leader. You can pull any group together. All groups or families have their differences that have to be ironed out and integrated, and you will find that you have a natural understanding of this process. If your vision is strong and you persevere in giving others the gift of your trustworthiness, remarkable things can occur around you. All right, well, he's very clearly in the shadow. I don't think I have to tell you guys. The shadow is corruption. Go figure. No, it's hard to believe. Corruption is an impersonal mistranslation of information as it moves into form. It's the pattern of processing sensations through the filter of fear. Remember what I said? I think fear is the problem here. I believe if I was working with Ryan in the shadows, that what we would uncover is fear of inadequacy and fear of the future are the two things that are causing this feed. It's like an Ouroboros snaking its own tail feedback loop. Corruption is a deep forgetting of the original message and purpose of your life. It distorts the collective codes of love and compassion into selfish agendas, which is exactly, I think, what we're seeing with Ryan. It's corrupting love. It's corrupting harmony. It's corrupting oneness into selfish agendas and the need for personal gain. Corrupt actions are those deeds done without awareness of the impact on others or the environment. This flawed worldview results in the political and social corruption of modern society's outdated models of elitist hierarchy. Yep. So he, in the shadow, is upholding outdated models of elitist hierarchy. It's pretty accurate. Those who use hierarchy to control others represent the unconscious anger of the world. For all of y'all that have watched this long, that you're maintaining an open mind, and you're like, I don't know about this like human design gene keys stuff. Is it hitting yet? Is it feeling a little bit too coincidental yet? This anger, and he's talked about the anger he has, creates irresponsible actions rooted in the inability to take ownership of one's impact on the world. Conversely, those who succumb to the fear of hierarchy become victims to it, which is exactly what is happening for him and Blake. They're like taking each other down through their shadows right now. It's like bridges be burning. Or if we quote Taylor, doesn't Taylor have a song, Castles Burning or something? Like they are going scorched earth, but because they're going scorched earth, they're also taking themselves down. They will become the victims to their own hierarchy and the corruption within their hierarchy. Does that not blow your mind? Come on, guys. You can't tell me with a straight face, if you've been questioning this yet, that this is bullshit. I don't believe you. I don't believe you if you say, yeah, oh yeah, Ashley, it's so bullshit. This is literally playing out before our eyes. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So this person, so Ryan, becomes overloaded with the weight of social responsibility, are either unable to escape the flawed system or shy away from power and authority as a way to avoid confrontation. So that'll be the repressive way of, we're all either going to have like a reactive way. It's like that fight or flight, right? We're going to have that fight where it's that reactive, where it's like upholding the hierarchies, or that repressive, that hide, that fawn, or that flight is going to be the repressive way of doing this, where you're just avoiding it. You're avoiding leadership. You're avoiding all of it. All of it. And I genuinely believe, and one of the things I've always said is good people in this world do great things with more money. So I don't believe that good people that are here to lead should just sit back and be like, oh, I'm just, like, I'm not going to deal with it. Because without you, how's the world change? Without people like you that have a good heart, how's the world change? Doesn't. The gift. So you're in the shadow, you move. It's not like you move. It's not like playing Nintendo or Mario Kart. It's like level up. And you go to the gift and you never go backwards. That's not how it works. You're going to ebb and flow, right? And then you're going to get into the gift. You're going to stay there more. And then you're going to dip down in the shadow and you're going to see it in a new frequency. And then you're going to come to the gift. You're going to dip that back down, see it in a new frequency. That's just life. Life is not a video game. Although I do have theories that we are all in a simulation. I am kind of bought into that conspiracy theory. Equilibrium is the cultivation of dynamic balance and inner peace through understanding the needs of the individual and the whole. This awareness adjusts itself within the whole, trusting that individual equilibrium will align with the self-organizing intelligence of natural harmony. Equilibrium is the courage to come to center and listen deeply before acting. Do you remember what I said earlier? I said, I don't think he thinks before he acts or says anything and then regrets it later. This gift naturally acquires a repertoire of interpersonal skills that it uses to help manage group dynamics, create coherence within a team or organization, as well as resolve relationship dissonance as they arise. Yeah. So these are the things, right? We'd be looking at where the shadow shows up in his life. I think we could come up with some, just throwing it out there, some ways right off the bat. How do we start moving into equilibrium? Well, what I love in using both human design and gene keys in the shadows is inner authority. Ultimately, inner authority from human design gives us something very practical, very tangible as a decision-making strategy to come back into equilibrium. It goes on to say equilibrium represents the awakening of the heterarchy, where deep trust and collaboration allows groups of people to operate as a multi-processing unit beyond the confining limitations of hierarchy in service to a higher collective goal. It's working together. And then the city is going to be the highest expression. A lot of people are just like, oh yeah, cool, Ashley. Like I said this in the video the other day. Yep, read it once. In the city. All right, what's next? This is going to be a lifelong journey for us at the end of the day. And it's meant to be. Short of those spiritual leaders that have that like lightning strike spiritual awakening, it's going to be a lifelong journey. So harmony is the vibrational code that brings all elements within any system into perfect and permanent resonance. Harmony occurs when the body becomes a hollowed reed through which the song of life may pour. Harmony represents the cosmic order of the universe, revealing every action as life guiding itself towards its inevitable state of balance. Through your practicality and charisma, you can help guide and align others into their higher potential. As a leader and a fixer, you can turn challenging ideas into efficient and creative solutions. You have the capacity to use your voice as a powerful instrument for compassionate wisdom. This is what I say. Like, I really believe that him and Justin had the potential to like really learn from each other, and especially Ryan from him on wisdom and self-love and compassion and harmony and oneness. And he just blew that up. Things that Richard Rudd had to say about Gene Key 50. So this is in relationship to obviously Ryan Reynolds, and it's the way of equilibrium. He says that's the 50th gene key, the battle against impossible odds. We have to take a stand and overcome the weight of our karma. We have to reach that tipping point. I would like to say that this is a tipping point for them. And we need courage and real perseverance. The good news is that the odds are not impossible, even though the shadow would like us to resign and give up. But as soon as you take a stand to find out what awakening is, a great force comes alive in you. It will wax and wane in the beginning, but over time, it will stabilize inside you and things will become easier. It takes self-discipline, but that will come naturally and start flowing from your core. Our longing calls this power for good out, and that's how we tackle corruption, slow and steady. We have a tendency to react to the shadow. We have an uncomfortable day, and then we get all tight inside, trying so hard to pull out the weeds, which makes us even more tense. Remember what I was saying previously? That this fear and this like intuitive clarity was having him look into things, and then he'd get uncomfortable. And this is what he's saying. You try so hard to pull out the weeds. Well, now he's forcing and initiating and all these problems, causing all this corruption around him. This 50th gene key is a real help in offering advice on how to approach uncomfortable shadow states. It's musical, remember? We just have to tune those strings better. It's like when a child starts to learn the violin, making this terrible rasping sound. It's agony to have to listen to, but then over time, little tunes start to appear, little riffs that are perfected and integrated. It's all a learning process. Our subtle bodies are like that. We have a lot of habits that undermine us. Right, Ryan? I think you could relate. That create corruption in our aura, and we have to work away at them. We have to identify them one by one and disable them, replacing them with new habits, harmonic patterns. It takes time and patience. It's a learning process. And this is for everyone, right? Not just Ryan. So this is for you as well. Just because it might not be your life's work doesn't mean that this isn't the work that we also have to do. He continues with, that's how we tackle the shadow of corruption. We have to keep our spirit buoyant and learn the knack of cheerfulness, finding things that keep us moving in the right direction. If we give in to the negative forces of the shadow, we'll quickly return to the place of deep suffering. Life constantly sends us signals and gifts if we pay attention. He also goes on to say, as we discover the inner gifts that equilibrium brings us personally, we become an agent of equilibrium in the world. We can also see this in nature. When natural systems move out of balance, they right themselves. Humanity can only do that when we found the internal equilibrium, so that whatever we do on the outside reflects what we embody on the inside. With this 50th gene key, we'll be called upon to tackle corruption at one level or another, and that could be anything. We'll just find ourselves doing it. Whatever job we have, this gift can be applied to that job now, as soon as we discover it on the inside. And I want to talk about this actually quickly, because nature, yes, nature in its natural state. He says, we see this in nature. When natural systems move out of balance, they right themselves. Well, what does corruption to nature do? It doesn't allow nature to right itself. So, for example, farmers complain that the wolves are killing their livestock. So what does the government do? They go and they kill all the wolves. Well, then they complain because the deer population's now too high. Nature can't right itself because there was corruption at the core that, and this isn't a government or political thing, like energetic corruption. We intervened when we shouldn't have. We corrupted the environment, and nature can no longer right itself on its own. So it's not easy when we look at this and coming to, out of the shadow for all of us with this gene key. It's not easy. There are shadow patterns for all of us. We all need to look at, how are we approaching our shadows? What are our shadows, and how do we overcome them for more harmony in our lives? It's work, but he has to be ultimately willing to do the work, because no one can force him. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this. If you know anyone that's on the spiritual journey, or maybe really interested in the Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni case, and they're interested in astrology, they're interested in self-development, they're interested in like the inner workings of this, maybe they have crystals, send this over to them. And it's just always such an honor to be here with you guys. I love that you guys are enjoying both the unhinged content, because I can also be very unhinged, and the more spiritual stuff. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll leave some links in the comments as well. If you want to check out your Gene Keys profile, you want to check out the VIA character strengths test for more of the psychology perspective, or you want to book your own reading. And with that, guys, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you in the next one.